Okay, so have you ever just looked around and noticed something kind of weird? You see someone with the fancy car, the expensive clothes, that picture perfect life all over Instagram, and you just assume they're loaded, right? But what if I told you that a lot of the time, the people who look rich are actually just one emergency away from financial disaster? And that the truly wealthy, well, they might be your neighbor who drives a 10-year-old Toyota. It's this huge paradox, and we're going to unpack it. Because when you get to the bottom of it, you start to see this incredible truth about money, about psychology, and what it actually takes to build a secure life.
So, let's break this down. On one side, you've got what looks rich. This is the performance, right? It's what we're all taught to admire. The big salary that pays for the leased BMW, the closet full of designer stuff, and underneath it all, usually a whole lot of debt just to keep up the appearance. But then on the other side, you have what it means to actually be wealthy. And that's not about your paycheck, it's about your net worth. It's the person driving a reliable used car, wearing simple clothes, and, here's the kicker, they have very little, if any, debt. See the difference? One is all for show. The other? That's a solid foundation.
So why do we get these two things so mixed up? How do we mistake the show for the real deal? Well, it all starts with this thing we can call the wealth illusion. It's this deep, almost subconscious idea that success isn't real unless you're performing it for everyone else to see.
This whole desire to perform wealth, it's not new at all. Actually, it has a name, conspicuous consumption. This term was coined way back in 1899 by a sociologist named Thorstein Veblen. He was watching people and realized, hey, they're not just buying stuff because they need it, they're buying it to show off, to publicly broadcast their economic power and signal their status. And, let's be real, in our world of social media, that impulse has been put on steroids.
And Veblen's point was so simple, but it's really profound when you think about it. For a lot of people, it's never really about the thing they're buying. It's about what that thing says about them. It's basically a tool they use to get a good reputation, to keep it. The spending itself becomes the goal. Why? Because spending is how you prove you belong or how you try to climb up that next rung on the social ladder.
Okay, but that just leads to another question, doesn't it? Why do we feel this intense need to signal our status? What's driving that? Well, the answer isn't in our wallets. It's in our heads. Turns out we're all hardwired to play what you could call the comparison game.
So back in 1954, a psychologist named Leon Festinger came up with this idea called social comparison theory. And what he basically said is that we all have this deep, innate drive to evaluate ourselves, to figure out where we stand in the world. And how do we do that? Simple. We look at other people and compare. It's not some kind of moral failing or character flaw. It's just a fundamental part of being human. We're constantly measuring ourselves against everyone else.
And this natural psychological drive, oh man, it can create a really powerful and expensive financial trap. It's like a three-step cycle. First, you see it. You're scrolling, you're looking around, and you're just bombarded with the highlight reels of other people's lives. Step two, you compare. You do what psychologists call an upward comparison. You look at someone who seems to have it better, and that makes you feel, well, kind of crummy. It creates this psychological discomfort. So what's step three? You spend. You go out and buy something to try and close that gap, to make that uncomfortable feeling go away. And that cycle, that's how you build debt, not wealth.
Okay, this right here, this brings us to what might be the single most important financial truth in this whole explainer. Seriously, if you can really truly internalize this one idea, it will change how you see everything. Are you ready? Income is not wealth.
Let's get really clear on what we're talking about. Wealth, which is also called net worth, is not the number on your paycheck. It's actually a pretty simple formula. It's the value of everything you own, like investments, savings, your house, minus everything you owe, like your mortgage, any loans, your credit card balance. It's just a snapshot of your financial health at a single moment in time. Think of it as a stock of value.
Probably the easiest way to picture this is with a simple analogy. Think of your income as a river. It's a constant flow of money coming in, right? It's measured over time. Now your wealth, that's a lake. It's a stock of value. It's all the water from the river that you've managed to capture and keep. And here's the thing. You can have a massive raging river of an income, but if all of it just flows right back out through spending, your lake is going to stay empty forever.
So this is the whole point right here. A big salary is fantastic if your goal is to perform being wealthy. It lets you buy all the props for the stage show, the car, the fancy vacations, you name it. But a high income all by itself does not automatically build a foundation of wealth. That only happens one way, when you decide to divert some of that river's flow into your lake. And this is exactly where the path of the quietly rich splits off. They're not playing the same game. They couldn't care less about the performance. Their entire focus is on the lake. They're just operating from a completely different mindset.
So instead of that conspicuous consumption we talked about, they practice something you might call conspicuous frugality. And let's be clear, this isn't about being cheap. Not at all. It's about being incredibly intentional with their money. They deliberately skip the spending on status symbols because they're aiming for something way more valuable: real financial independence and the resilience to weather any storm. They've just completely opted out of the comparison game.
But why? Why choose that path? Well, whether they know the official term or not, they intuitively get this psychological concept called the Hedonic Treadmill. And it's a super simple idea. The buzz you get from a new purchase always fades. Always. You get the new phone, you're excited for a week, and then it's just your phone. Your happiness level just goes right back to where it was before. The quietly wealthy get this. They know that chasing lasting happiness by buying more stuff is a treadmill you can run on forever and never actually get anywhere.
All right, so if they're not buying all the flashy stuff, how on earth are they building all this wealth? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple and, honestly, a little bit boring. See, to really get the power of boring, you first have to understand the powerful force inside your own brain that fights against it. It's called present bias. And it just means our brains are wired to want good things right now. We'd much rather have the small, immediate pleasure of a fancy meal tonight than the massive, delayed reward of a comfortable retirement decades from now. This bias is what makes saving and investing feel like a punishment, even when we logically know it's the smartest move.
So what do the wealthy do? They don't fight this bias with willpower because they know that fails. Instead, they build systems to work around it. They use practical antidotes. What does that actually look like? Well, it's setting up systematic, automatic investing into tax-advantaged accounts so they don't even have to think about it. It's focusing on the slow, steady, compounding growth of their assets over decades. It's making the choice again and again to prioritize accumulating assets over accumulating status symbols. And crucially, it's deliberately avoiding lifestyle inflation, making sure their spending doesn't just creep up every time they get a raise.
And this kind of reveals the quiet secret at the heart of it all, doesn't it? Building real, sustainable wealth isn't some big fireworks show. It's not created in a moment of risky, exciting genius. It's more like planting a tree. It's built over boring, quiet decades of patience and consistency. It's the simple, unglamorous result of choosing to fill the lake, not just watch the river flow by, year in and year out.
So after all of this, we land on a final, and maybe the most crucial point. We have to stop letting advertisers and social media define what wealth is and start deciding for ourselves.
So I'm just going to leave you with one question to think about. If you took away the audience, if there was nobody to impress, nobody to compare yourself with, what would a wealthy life look like for you? What would you want your money to do then? Because I think the answer to that question, that's where real freedom starts.